my name is Mary Dellenbaugh-Losse. Welcome back to my monthly 10-minute talk series in which I explore complex urban development topics in 10 minutes or less. This month I want to talk about housing, in particular the question of affordability. And in order to do that, I want to look at three different types of housing provision: normal market housing provision, social housing, and housing commons. And by that, I mean cooperatives. I'd also like to talk about the recommunalization referendum happening right now in Berlin called Deutsche Wohnen und Co. enteignen, and how it fits into this framework. Okay, so to walk us through these three types of housing provision and how their prices stack up, I want to use the example of a 100 square meter, two-bedroom apartment in the sort of central part of Berlin. Maybe just as a caveat, I'm going to be looking specifically at rental housing today in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. The specifics in other countries may be slightly different, but the basic principles apply. Okay, so in our first fictional scenario, our 100 square meter apartment is being rented on the normal, unregulated housing market. A certain amount of rent per square meter goes to pay the mortgage to the bank, and another portion is allocated to maintenance and utilities in the building. So far, so good. In addition, some part of the rent will pay the salaries of the employees in the management office, the rent for the management office, their office supplies, etc. This gets us to 9 euros per square meter. The going rate for an apartment in Berlin for a new rental contract inside the ring after full renovation is, however, 14 euros per square meter, and the landlord is not willing to leave any of that money on the table. So in this scenario, 9 euros per square meter goes to pay the actual costs accrued by the building and its maintenance, while the landlord makes 5 euros per square meter profit on their investment for a total cost of 1,400 before utilities. Now let's examine the scenario in which our fictional apartment is owned by one of the 6 municipal housing companies here in Berlin. In this case, the building has the same mortgage and maintenance costs, and a similar portion of the cost per square meter goes to paying for the management, so staffing the rental office, making sure there are dedicated contact persons for the apartments in the building, paying rent for the company office space, staffing the emergency hotline, etc. Also, in this case, the company takes 1 euro per square meter above costs to buffer against emergency costs such as a new boiler. In this scenario, the same apartment costs only 1,000 euros plus utilities. However, in Berlin, you need to demonstrate to the publicly owned housing company that you fulfill the income or social requirements that would make you eligible for this apartment. According to a recent report, nearly 2/3 of Berlin's residents qualify for public housing based on income. Unfortunately, there are only about 100,000 such units available in the city. In our final scenario, the building has been purchased by a cooperative, or a cooperative has agreed on a long-term lease with the owner of the land or property. The latter is the case in the example I'll talk about a bit later, the Kalkbreite in Zurich. Again, same mortgage, same lease payments, same maintenance and utilities. However, since the property is managed by the owners in monthly plenary sessions, the management costs are much less. There are still some costs, perhaps a bookkeeper, administrative help, and the like to assist with paperwork, but nowhere near the cost of the market or public versions. Here, as with the public scenario, the residents have decided to put aside 1 euro per square meter for an emergency fund. In our third and final scenario, the same apartment that we've been talking about this whole time costs only 850 euros a month plus utilities, though the residents are expected to donate time to keep the building and the cooperative running. Now let's look at these three offers from the perspective of affordability. Affordable housing is defined as housing costs, so rent plus utilities, which do not exceed 1/3 of your available monthly household income. According to the Department of Labor for Berlin, the median income in the city in 2019 was about 3,300 euros per person before taxes, which is about 2,100 euros after taxes. So let's assume that this is a two-person household. They're both average people, so both median. They each have 2,100 euros available, so a combined household income after taxes of 4,200 euros. In this case, even the market rate apartment would not be affordable for them according to the definition. So if utilities like heat and hot water cost about 2 to 3 euros per square meter, This apartment would cost up to 40% of their available income after taxes. And don't forget, this is the median income, so that means that 50% of the population earns less. Our other two scenarios pass the affordability test for this fictional couple. However, due to their relatively high income, they're not eligible for the social housing option. Okay, so how does the currently running public referendum about recommunalization fit into all of this? Deutsche Wohnen und Co. enteignen is a public referendum that seeks to force the Berlin Senate to dispossess private real estate companies who own more than 3,000 housing units in the city and convert these apartments into public and socially owned housing. The activists foresee that the companies do get damages for this dispossession, but that the amount they receive will be much lower than market value. The final part of the plan is that this housing stock will be put into a public agency created for the purpose, which is co-managed by residents, tenants, employees, and the Senate. This housing stock can never be privatized or sold off again. In essence, this referendum is seeking to undo multiple decades of privatization of social housing in the city and move housing from our leftmost scenario to the middle scenario, thus massively increasing the affordable housing stock in the city. As of April 25th, they've collected 130,000 signatures of the 175,000 that they need to get this measure on the ballot. So let's see what happens. So I want to finish up today by talking about the rightmost column, commons, housing commons. And we talked about this in our book, the Urban Commons Cookbook, so if you want more details, go check that out there. I want to talk about the example of the Kalkbreite, which is a housing cooperative in Zurich. So the Kalkbreite uses the Zurich model of cooperative housing, which means that the land is owned by the city and they pay a long-term lease based on the value of the land, and the house that's on it, the building that's on it, is new construction. And this construction was connected with a lot of different requirements. So they needed to build a streetcar depot in the ground floor. They needed to have a certain amount of retail in that building. They needed to have a publicly accessible courtyard, etc., etc. So there were a lot of rules as a result of this contract. But because of that, the Kalkbreite cooperative is able to offer quite affordable rents in comparison to other apartments in Zurich. They also have a number of innovations. So for example, each rental contract includes a payment of 0.8 square meters of communal space. In this way, each of the residents subsidizes some of the commonly used spaces, such as the cafeteria or the 4 extra rooms in the building, which are used for various purposes. At the moment, they have one that's a gym in the building, they have a youth room, they have a sewing room, etc. In addition, another thing that's really interesting about the Kalkbreite is that they use systematic consensus to make their decisions. So instead of people saying how much they're for something, they have to rate how much resistance they feel to that decision on a scale of 1 to 10. And this gives a much more nuanced idea than just thumbs up or thumbs down. If you want to learn more about the Kalkbreite or about cooperative housing, check out the Urban Commons Cookbook. We've got a number of resources and links at the back of the book, as well as in the chapter about the Kalkbreite. So I hope you found this interesting today. If you want to get more content like this, follow my channel, or you can also follow me on Twitter at MDL_Berlin. See you soon!